The government also wants to introduce minimum income requirements for those seeking to bring foreign spouses or children into the country. To arrive with a spouse from outside the EU, an immigrant would have to earn at least £18,600 a year, more if they have children.
May joins me now. Welcome.
Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning. Let's start by talking about the most important of these measures, which is to greatly increase the amount of income you have to bring in a migrant husband or spouse or children. If you're an immigrant into this country and you want to bring in relatives, explain to us how the new system is going to work.
Yes, well, perhaps I could set it, first of all, in the context of the wider issue about net migration. As you say, we want to reduce net migration to the tens of thousands. And we've said in doing that we would look at every aspect of immigration. So we've already looked at non-EU economic migrants, we've already looked at student visas and settlement, and now we're looking at family. And this is not just about the numbers, though, in terms of family, because we think it is right that somebody who is wanting to bring somebody into the UK to join them as a spouse or a partner should be able to support them financially and should not be bringing them in on the basis that they're going to be reliant on the state.
So
and that's why
how much money do you need to have if you want to bring a wife or a husband in?
Well, what we're talking about is 18,600. We asked our independent migration advisory committee to look at the figures and to advise us as to what that could be. And they set a range, and we've actually chosen at the lower end of the range, but it's the point at which people would normally not be reliant on coming off income-related benefits. And we think that benefits point is an important one.
And what about other relatives? What about children? What about aunts and uncles and grannies and so on?
Well, in relation to children, we think it right that, because obviously there are costs involved in children as well, that the income should be increased, the required income should be increased for each child. So for one child, 22,400 would be the figure, and then £2,400 more for every other child, each additional child. And I think that's right. I think it is important that if people are bringing people into the UK to create a family here in the UK, that we say that you should be able to support yourselves and not be reliant on the state.
And there's a sort of Britishness test that you're going to bring in as well. Tell us about that.
Well, yes, it's about, as I said, it's not just about numbers, it's also about looking at people being able to support themselves here in the UK and that they be able to integrate into UK society, and we think that is important. So for settlement, from next year we will be requiring people to be able to speak English to a certain level, to be able to understand English, and also to do a Life in the UK test, so that we know that they're going to be able to integrate and become part of British society here. But of course what we're doing in terms of family migration isn't just about those aspects, it's also about this issue called Article 8.
I want to come on to Article 8, which is the right to a family life in the human rights legislation. But before we do that, you must have seen estimates in your department about what these measures, the ones we've been talking about, will do in terms of net immigration. So how many fewer immigrants do you expect to come into this country as a result of what you're announcing tomorrow?
Well, this is not big numbers, the family migration, which is why, as I've made the point, this isn't just about numbers for family migration. It is about setting out clearly the rules in relation to Article 8, which we can talk about in a little while, but it's also about some pretty important principles, I think, about people being able to support themselves.
I'll come back to numbers.
It's not in itself about numbers, because the really large numbers, what makes the major difference in terms of the overall net migration is in student visas.
Yes, and there's been lots of issues around that.